All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our presentation. Yep, so we're just going to go over a few things, like Addison mentioned before, so we might overlap a little bit. But yeah, we'll sort of start very similar. So we've been around since 2023, I think like other teams here. And also we're part of MYMI. So we're sort of a bit different to other teams where we're sort of a project under MYMI at the moment. And they sort of help us out with dealing with the Monash and making sure that we're all sort of up to code with them. So yeah, we're just sort of a project, as you can see on the left, that was the starting team in 2023, just in front of the Monash Heart Hospital, Victorian Heart Hospital there. And then we sort of progressed more, and this is when I sort of took over as team lead. And then, oh, sorry, that's later. But in that time, these were our two designs. We were a very centrifugal pump-based design, and that was our sort of inspiration based on the Bivacor device being really hot in the news at that moment. And then sort of we then went into like a bit of a pivot and went to a centrifugal pump device instead, which also just shows, again, it does involve a lot of pivoting and sort of addressing a few challenges as well, considering we never did a device like this before. So yeah, it was a really exciting year to take on something new. And you definitely need a really good team for that. So number one rule, I think, if you're taking on a team lead role or are doing it again, invest in your team. Your team is the backbone of everything, the people you're going to be working with for years. So make sure you invest in them and make sure you pick them accordingly because it can make or break the team. So we're pretty split into 5 different R&D teams. So we have our cardiovascular systems, compliance, controls, motor, and power. So controls, motor, and power are electrical subteams, and they all do very different things, but they all work together really closely. And then our main mechanical one is cardiovascular systems, and then we have our biomedical compliance team. Finally, we have the executive team, which is what I've been part of the past 2 years. Along with our electrical and mechanical CTOs and our operations officer. So for last year, our main aims were just to bring up members on technical experience because that was something we noticed previously was quite difficult. We would bring in new recruits and you would bring them in from different walks of life and different experience levels. So it was very important to make sure we get as much of a consistency when starting out the design process, just so everyone's speaking the same language and knows what's happening. We then also wanted to involve students more in the design process, team meetings and prototyping. We still struggled with team meetings, I'll be honest. I think at the start it was fairly successful. We held less. That was one thing we had to do and made them more focused, especially trying to get as much student input as you can in these team meetings instead of just yourself talking and giving out a lecture, which isn't the most effective way of engaging members. We then wanted to improve our recruitment procedures and organization, just to make sure we're once again getting the highest caliber of students we can and making sure we reach out as best as we can as well. And finally, we wanted to get our onboarding process organized because CBU, I think you guys have a pretty interesting onboarding. You have a Bible dedicated to that. We have a few documents titled final on them. So we wanted to make sure we have something standardized and made sure that, yeah, this can be carried on forward and upgraded. So like I said before, we have them basically 2 different branches, but this year we're hoping to try an operations branch. We have, sorry, this is just to combat the dread of admin work, especially for executive teams who can't really focus on the R&D side as much. And having an operations team dedicated just for that is a bit of a relief, and it definitely helps when deadlines come up as well. So like I said before, executive branch is mainly involved with the project management side of things, planning for the year, making sure everyone's coordinated, seeing if there's any fires, if we can put them out, and also organizing just full team meetings and being sort of the main liaison with external parties as well. This mainly includes team leads, department leads, and the operations lead, as I said before. We only have one. Well, I was the only team lead for the past year, but this year also we're expanding it to 2 just because it does help to have a sort of second person to help with a lot of those admin tasks when the other one isn't available. like I said, with the R&D team, it's just those directly involved with the artificial art design. And then our operations branch, yeah, is mainly there just to help keep more consistency with partnerships. I found myself struggling a lot with keeping up to date with which partnership agreement is due, or I haven't checked for like a month, and when I check, it's like sort of one extra month closer to the competition deadline. So yeah, it was really important to make sure that moving forward we have a bit more consistency and more members designated to certain roles as much as we can. So with the recruitment process, we've been very successful with recruitment in terms of numbers, but I think we've just, yeah, had a bit of an issue handling their integration, like I said before. In addition, yeah, recruitment processes year by year, we sort of don't change the questions as much as we'd like to, and also have a standardized and set criteria as to how we score them. The questions also, while they were technically challenging for us, it was pretty daunting for interview candidates. Like you would find that you would ask, oh, what's the difference between a continuous and pulsatile pump? And they would be looking at you and being like, one continues and one doesn't. And it's like, what are you really trying to ask other than like making them search on ChatGPT on the second monitor? So I think we just really need to make sure we ask questions that actually challenge their critical thinking and get them and be able to assess that, because I think you can always learn after, but you want to make sure you bring in people that are really switched on and can solve problems on the spot, as opposed to looking up things and knowing as much before the interview. And finally, just a bit more of a logistics thing with scheduling. So just something we really did use was Cake. I don't know if anyone's used that before, but it's something used in industry when hiring. So that each one is a certain acronym. I have it listed in the criteria sheet, but basically each one assesses a certain type or a certain part of the candidate's technical expertise and their motivations for joining the team. So it's really effective, and it's a really good way of it's just a really easy way to implement it as well. Just some more room for improvement. I think having more first year students, because like I said before, if you try and target like students who are like in their second last year or their last year of studying, they're sort of going at the end of the year. So you're not really having a very high retention, even if they're really switched on. So it's a really good idea to have a balance of first year students. And it's something that we couldn't really do this year just because of time constraints, but we want to definitely do in the future just to keep that consistency going, and also having something fun for them to do. So when they're onboarded, they have a student project. Last year or the year before was maglev. So we tried to get them involved with maglev because we weren't really sure if we were going to go towards that pathway. And also it was a good way for them just to get involved with artificial arts in a really niche area as well. And the second thing, having practical questions before interviews is pretty interesting, just to see their software proficiency and make it more engaging so they can walk you through their solution to a problem. We've seen other student teams do that with SolidWorks, with even like math problems, but really just trying to target that software proficiency is a goal for next year, or for this year. For onboarding, yeah, technical knowledge transfer is hard. You'll always have like the guru for like answers just leave all of a sudden, and you just can't get in contact with them, and it's really frustrating when you don't really have anyone else who can do that. So definitely a really important thing to knuckle down on, especially putting team leads in like the deep end with little team leading experience is quite challenging as well, just because you sort of spend a lot of time just trying to like catch up with all the content. And then, yeah, lack of official standard documentation as well. So the handover process this year was a lot better done in the sense that we're documenting more, and we're ensuring that we can sort of have these points written down and then discuss them as we go and say, oh, does this work? Did you think that this could be better done this year? So just having something written down is already a good start. We also had like some standard operating procedures introduced for members to refer to, and to ensure that set expectations from the beginning of the year were already communicated to them. We also had just a lot more experience with the team lead's perspective. So making sure that they have a lot more experience with being on the team and having a bit more knowledge of what's expected in the role. And also something that was pretty successful was student-led workshops. So making sure you can have workshops from industry, which I think was an improvement we need. But something that's good is also having a student-led one, because you were a student once, and so you learned in a certain way, and that would probably best help students who are just starting out. So that was really that was something that we tried, and I think was really beneficial. Yeah, room for improvement. Just making sure we give recruits more practical or CVE related problems, just to make sure that they're sort of more engaged, and keep it consistent throughout the year, as opposed to doing it, yeah, during that sort of break zone when everyone's free, but that means that everyone's doing something else other than studying. So making sure that we keep it consistent, so when members are at uni more often, it's a lot easier for them to attend. Um, Sorry, the transition didn't work there. But just with partnerships, I don't have much to go on this. But just for those who don't know how to start, ask. It's as easy as that. I wish I was better at it, but it definitely is just reaching out to someone you haven't talked to before, or comes up in LinkedIn, or does a post, and you just say, "Oh, hi, my name's this. This is what I do. Can we talk sometime, or are you interested in helping?" I did that towards the end of the year, and I wish I did it earlier. But in any case, yeah, it's a really good skill to have. Believe will come out well, because if you don't go in with the right intentions, you're just not going to really, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get what you want. So you got the asking part, but if you're not really going the extra mile and ask them what they want and believing you'll get it, then you're not going to really get it there. And then receive, obviously. Um, just one thing about there, going prepared. So having a prospectus organized is really recommended, especially for new teams who haven't done this before. So having a really detailed, well, not really detailed, but really specific list of, what your team, sort of is, what it consists of, what your objectives, your vision is. And then what we do is have like a tiered system. So having a sort of, certain tier of donation or support, and then that sort of progresses up the ladder. And it gives them a really just good way of seeing how they can contribute. Obviously, yeah, tell them what's in it for them. Really just frame it for them. Tell them, oh, this is a really good way to get involved with student teams, or we have the chance to present this at the world stage in the Hackathon grand final. Really try and talk it up, because believe it or not, people do want to help. It's just more about framing it in a certain way. Yeah, never stop asking. Doesn't really matter who you're talking to. And yeah, if you don't know who to talk to, I would suggest PhD students. A lot of you guys I'm talking to are PhD students, so sorry. But they are really the ones who have like a lot of in-depth knowledge on connections, and for those who might be able to help or interested in helping, that was definitely what helped our team. So highly recommend that. Just something that we'd like to try this year, and maybe you would like to as well, is, yeah, just having more academics involved. Just that's it, I think. And yeah, also having more partners involved in the design phase. We engage a lot of partners once we have a design, and we're like, hey, can you help us make this? And they do it, but they were like, oh, it'd be cool if we could suggest this instead for next year. And it's cool now having that conversation where we can actually talk to them from the design phase. And speaking of connections, yeah, you saw this. It's good to see like connections growing, and it's good to see a lot of companies helping. Even companies that have big contracts with different companies. You can just ask, and usually like they're really willing to help. So if that's something you're struggling with, definitely give it a go. But yeah, thank you for the chance to talk. Sorry if I went over, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
One I had was, as you mentioned, MYMI is a more unique sort of structure. In what ways does that like structure support the Monash Heart Hack team itself?
Yeah. So MyMe is, so yeah, they're a student team. Like that's just like the definition. Like they're a student team. So they do a lot of, they sort of go um what's it called? They have a very big breadth of projects, which is one of their projects. They have a kidney project, artificial kidney project. They have one for, I think, preventing like infant mortality during sleep, I think. So their support is basically for like the way they support all their projects is sort of the same. So really, it is just a financial. I'll be honest. They do receive money from the university and they're divided amongst the projects. And then I think the next major one would have to be um, the integration with, I guess, other med tech groups in Melbourne where we're based. So we get invited to a lot of events. We go invited to a pitch night, which is really cool. Um, and yeah, it just opens up a lot of networking opportunities that we don't really have to organize as much as we want to. So it's like really good to have, I guess, another organization, like figure that out for you because they have the connections already. Not to mention, there's a lot of alumni who are involved with MYMI, so um, we have a lot of good connections with them, and we can always like rack their brain about an idea or if they can help us with something. So that's sort of that's like the main support we get from them. But yeah, and also not to mention, we do get a lot of recruits from MYMI, so a lot of those a lot of members who are like aligned with medtech and really interested in it, but don't get involved in any projects. They sort of look to us and they really want to join us. So it's a really good, I guess, yeah, it's just a really good partnership we have with them at the moment.
Yep. Jerry, you had a
Oh,
question.
hi. Hi. I just wanted to know that because you say your executive team is quite involved in the administration side. So there's actually two questions I would like to know. So for the executive team that is like in your team, do they also go into the technical side? And also if they do go to the technical side, how do they balance the administration and the technical that you have to give for the project to run smoothly?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something I wish I did better, I'll be honest. Because I started off as being on the technical side as like a member. And after 1 year, I went straight um, to the like team lead role. So I definitely found it pretty difficult to get involved with the technical side. If it was technical, I'd be more towards mechanical because that's my major. But I think you definitely like the role does carry a lot of responsibility for the admin side. Like you'll just it's just so members don't get involved with that because you want to do as much admin for them as possible. Um, but at the same time, you have to know what your team is doing, right? And it's sort of assumed you're like a senior member in the team, so you have to sort of give not harsh opinions, but you have to really tell it how it is sometimes. So I think um, how I sort of got involved mainly was talking with team leads. So I would try and organize team lead meetings. That way, it's just sort of really efficiently covered, and I can hear if there's any roadblocks just straight from the team leads themselves, as opposed to attending every single meeting. Because I think I tried to do that at the start, and it didn't work very well, just because your time is sort of spread thin. So yeah, definitely dedicate more to the admin. If you do have the option, try and get two team leads because that's a really good balance. Um, but yeah, you would have to be more involved in the admin side generally. But just yeah, not really like you can. It's encouraged that you're involved technically, like hands on, if you have the time. But yeah, you just definitely want to prioritize the tasks that really carry the team forward and making sure that they have what they need.